Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Rachel Fiori. I want to talk to you in this episode about obligation, the program of obligation. Who and what are you obligated to? What are you obligated to do in life, in your relationships, work relationships, your job, romantic relationships, your marriage, your partnership? What are you obligated? To whom are you obligated to? Obligation is a program. You are not obligated to do anything for anyone, whether it is in your marriage, your job. Obligation is a program of inequality and a program of powerlessness. Depending on which side of the coin you're running that program of obligation, that you believe your spouse is obligated to fill in the blank. There could be 100 of things that you could answer at the end of that sentence. My spouse is obligated to. No, they're not. There is no obligation to have sex with you because you're in a partnership. There is no obligation to make you feel better because you feel bad in a partnership, in a marriage. There is no obligation to show up for work and do your job. It's not an obligation. When you get rid of this word, it is a third dimensional brainwashing, conditioning program. I feel obligated. You're not obligated to continue to spend time with family members because they're family members. All of this comes from separation consciousness, inequality, powerlessness. It does not come from oneness consciousness. So what do you mean, though? Well, of course there's obligations in life. No, there's not. There's the way of responsibility. There's a difference. There is the way of loyalty. There's a difference. There is the way of honoring. There is a difference. There is a difference among those vibrational frequencies, those universal ways of oneness, and the program of obligation. Okay, let me give you an example. One of my couples moving through a union of oneness consciousness is the coaching program that I offer for couples. And becoming oneness consciousness, becoming the universal ways of oneness in our romantic relationships. That's what this program offers that I coach. And, you know, one partner showing up, these are my wounds, this is my pain. And then when I feel this way and I'm honest about it, I feel obligated to my partner because I know it makes him sad. I know he doesn't want to hear that, right? And I don't want him to feel sad. And then I don't want, this or that, the other. And there is a program of obligation that I am obligated to now go make sure he's okay and he feels better because I'm running wounds that are pushing away, intimacy, for example. You're not obligated to take care of him to make him feel better. You're not obligated to do anything like that. Why not? Because we're functioning in what the vibrational frequency of obligation actually is. And that means that in this case, a lot of women run programs of obligation because they're women and they've been treated like fucking shit, objectified for thousands and thousands of years, for centuries. And everything is placed on the woman to make everyone else in the family feel better and all the things where, generally speaking, the husbands or the men in the family don't have to do shit. Like they didn't have the responsibility of making sure they themselves took care of themselves, that they process their own emotions, that they heal their own wounds. They want, the wife to run around and making sure she takes care of everybody, putting herself last, because that's one of her obligations as a woman and as a wife. We've come from that old paradigm, the old world. That's just what the world taught women. Of course, I'm generalizing. There can be exceptions to that. Generally speaking, that's the way it's been for thousands of years. And so women tend to run the programs of obligation that they are obligated to, making sure everybody's taken care of, everybody's okay. That is slavery. That is not the way of responsibility. All of that is dysfunctional. Generally speaking, men have taken on the role of running the programs of obligation to make sure you are obligated to me. I own you. I am superior to you, generally speaking. So walk on eggshells, make my dinner the right way, make me feel better. Don't do anything to upset me, that kind of thing. Don't show emotion in front of me. I can't handle it. It's your fault if I feel bad. Okay, that's the old world that we've come from. But I'm pointing this out for a reason because those examples are the programs that we have to heal within ourselves that almost everybody carries to varying degrees, of course. Okay, what's left of them can be really sneaky. So I'm using this example specifically because I want you to see how subtle this program of obligation, of inequality, of powerlessness. I'm obligated to everybody else. I have to put them first. My emotions don't matter. That's not blatantly obvious on the surface. What is happening here in this example is I'm expressing an emotion where I kind of contract and feel uncomfortable when it comes to this emotional intimacy, and I'm pulling back a little bit, and this is how I feel in this moment next to my partner. And it's not personal. And it's not personal. This person came in with this wound. Not that the wound wasn't made worse in the relationship, it was, but this person came in with that wound. And if I stick with just this specific example, I want you to see it because I want to give real life examples. That sneaky little program was, "Oh my god, and now I feel bad because I know that makes him sad, and I know that's unfair to him." Yeah, it does. It's gonna make him sad. Yeah, it's unfair to him. It is. And yet there's no blame. There's no obligation to do anything different than what you're doing right now. What are you responsible for? This is the way of responsibility versus obligation. So in the way of responsibility, her responsibility in this example is, "Oh, look at that. I'm contracting. I'm actually going into fight, flight, or freeze," which was freeze for this person. I go into freeze, I'm contracting, my heart closes. I now feel very uncomfortable. And yet, a few minutes ago, when I had distance with my partner, I felt loving and I was thinking these positive, wonderful thoughts. And then as soon as it was like we're in close proximity, I shut down. I feel very uncomfortable and not an easy thing. Not an easy thing for a couple to move through. And yet, um, this shows the beauty of the work that this work actually is the work of becoming oneness consciousness of what the universal ways of oneness offer. So, in this example, what is when I am becoming the way of responsibility? I'm going to give you two examples here. As the woman in this example, what is my responsibility? My responsibility in the way of responsibility is to see that this program got activated, is to just express, "Hey, here are the programs, here's the wound that just got activated with you right next to me, and I am going to activate the ways of oneness. I'm gonna embrace my wounds fully, even if it's just for 1 minute or 2 minutes at a time, okay? I'm gonna drop in, I'm gonna embrace the wounds, I'm gonna connect to my divinity." This is all an energetic process that you learn how to do, by the way, these aren't just words. This is how do you do that? Well, that's 100% what we teach people how to do successfully, energetically, step by step by step, till you get to the point where you can just do what I'm referring to and talking about right now in this example. Okay. So, everything at Masters of Self University, this is what we teach you how to do. Okay. So, I notice this is happening. I'm activated in my wounding. I'm now uncomfortable. I'm now intimacy is like, nope, freeze. I'm in the freeze response. Okay. So I see that when I'm becoming the way of responsibility, I see that, oh, right now is a great time to heal myself because my wound just got activated. Okay, I'm still the woman. Remember, I'm that partner. Becoming the way of patience means I take a deep breath. It just means to push pause. I take a deep breath and I just push pause. Why? Because I don't want to ignore what's happening. I don't want to pretend it's not happening. I'm not avoiding. I'm not escaping. I'm not denying. You see it? So I'm already the way of responsibility, which means, oh, this is happening right now. Oh, this is so uncomfortable. Ugh. The way of responsibility, the way of patience allows me to then evolve into the way of surrender. What's the way of surrender? Zero resistance to what this is right now. Zero resistance. What that means, I am becoming the vibrational frequency of flow, of fluidity, of divine spaciousness. I'm becoming the vibrational frequency of flow versus fight, flight, or freeze, freezing, rigidity, contracting. I'm becoming the way of surrender. Zero resistance to the fact that this just got activated in my body. I'm in fight, flight, or freeze right now. Oh, look at that. When I become the way of responsibility, I then take a breath and push pause and become the way of patience with myself and my programs. I can then elevate to a higher vibrational frequency, the way of surrender, which allows me to flow with what is happening right now instead of resisting what's happening right now, which only locks it in and doesn't allow it to heal, right? When I become the way of surrender, I can then become more easily the way of truth. What is the truth in this scenario? That this isn't personal to my partner, that I have this wound that is simply being triggered by my partner, but there's no blame, there's no judgment. He's not doing anything wrong. This is my wound, and that intimacy and getting close it's freaking me out. That's the truth. I am now the way of truth with what is happening inside of me. You see it? Because I am the way of truth, it allows me to elevate more to become the way of presence, to become the way of connection, the way of compassion for my pain and my wound. That allows me to become the way of harmlessness and gentleness. I'm not forcing this to go away. I'm not trying to make it fucking heal right now. I can't be here. This isn't fair. My partner, this isn't fair. I hate how I feel. No, harmlessness and gentleness. The way of presence, the way of surrender. This is what is right here, right now, in this moment. This got activated. That means there's pain and unhealed trauma in there. We don't make that bad or wrong. We don't judge that. We don't blame it. We don't put ourselves last. Say, oh, I can't be like this for my partner. No, I am here in this moment experiencing this. There is trauma happening in my body that got activated because there's unhealed trauma in there. You see how we're elevating beyond what the patriarch, what separation consciousness has taught us? You see how we're elevating and rising higher above, becoming higher vibrational frequencies of understanding of what's really going on without blaming, judging, accusing, being at fault. It's not the same thing as the way of responsibility. You're judging, you're blaming, you're accusing, you're being obligated to. That keeps you in separation consciousness and it heals nothing. Okay. So I gave you a little example of what the person whose, wounds got activated there, what her responsibility when she's becoming the ways of oneness. Now, the partner, let's talk about the spouse. What is his responsibility in this? So his responsibility is not to heal her, isn't to make her feel better. Don't run the programs. That isn't an enlightened being. That creates codependency, that creates obligation in a different sense, right? I'm now obligated to sit here and move through this with you. You're not obligated to do that. Get out of obligation. That's a program that comes from dysfunctional separation consciousness. It comes from patriarchal world that we are splitting away from, elevating out of, which causes nothing but damage for men and women and children and everybody alive on the fucking planet. You should know that by now. If you don't know that by now, you're going to be very triggered listening to me. Get the way of truth, become the way of truth, and just realize how damaging patriarchy has been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's fucking terrible. Get rid of it. We're elevating out of that. Okay. We're becoming oneness consciousness. Patriarchy is not that. So that era is over. And for those who still want to live there, that is your free will choice. You're not going to get judgment from me. You're going to get triggered by me. Guarantee you that. If you still want to live in the separation consciousness world. But we're going to split fully. It'll happen completely sometime over the next like 8 years or so. And we won't see you anymore, and you won't have to deal with more enlightened beings anymore. It will trigger the fuck out of you constantly. Everybody will be happier. So, what is the role, if I could put it this way, in a loving way? What is the role, not obligation? What is the role of the partner in this scenario who walks in and is simply by his presence, is triggering his partner? If he's becoming a being of oneness consciousness, what's the first way of oneness? The way of responsibility, right? By the way, if you haven't read about the ways of oneness yet, please grab your copy on Amazon, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness. Start to learn what they are and become them. So if he's becoming a being of oneness consciousness, if he's becoming the universal ways of oneness, what is his then responsibility? Well, the way of responsibility also teaches us what we are not responsible for. That people pleasing, that obligation program, right? You're not responsible for healing your partner. It isn't his responsibility to heal her. It isn't his responsibility anything, to do anything regarding healing her. She has the power to heal herself. That is her responsibility, right? Now, if he's becoming a being of oneness consciousness, he is becoming the vibrational frequencies of each and every universal way of oneness. What would that look like for somebody who's choosing to become the universal ways of oneness in this example? Well, what that would look like is my responsibility is first and foremost her getting triggered and activated. What does that trigger and activate inside of me? Does it activate sadness? Does it activate rejection programs, for example, or fear of abandonment, for example? What does it activate inside of me? What does that trigger inside of me? That is first and foremost as a being of the way of responsibility. I am becoming the way of responsibility. So the way of responsibility means I am observing myself and seeing, oh, does this bring up any of my wounds? That when we get closer in closer proximity to one another, she's all, triggered in her pain, her wounds, her whatever. What does that trigger inside of me? That's the way of responsibility. And then alchemize it and heal it and become every other way of oneness. That's the way of responsibility. Okay. Now, as I become each and every way of oneness, so that I am the way of responsibility. So I'm going to see if this brings up any of my own wounding. And then I'm going to drop in and I'm going to become the way of patience, the way of surrender to my own wounding. Because as I become the way of patience, the way of surrender, the way of truth, presence, the way of connection, compassion, harmlessness, and gentleness, oh my God, I'm becoming the way of connection, which means I'm connected to my own divinity, which means I'm bringing online energetically the very divine enlightened frequencies that loves all of this pain, all of this programming into transcendence anyway. I am the way of connection, so I connect energetically, vibrationally. That's what I learned how to do. And remember, this is the process we actually teach you how to successfully do this in these programs that we offer at Masters of Self University. I connect. I become. I become a more divine, more powerful being in the moment. Now, let's pretend that my partner's wounds didn't activate any wounding in me. I have no wounding. What would I do then? I still become the way of responsibility in every way of oneness. What way of oneness or what ways of oneness are lacking in my partner right now? Well, if my partner is in fight, flight, or freeze, she's in freeze, she's contracted, she's afraid, she's in fear, for crying out loud, okay? There's trauma in there. So intimacy is triggering trauma. So she goes into freeze mode. What is my obligation? Nothing. I don't exist that low anymore, remember? What is the loving thing to do is to become my divine self more powerfully right here, right now. And that means to become the universal ways of oneness right here, right now, in this moment. So I become the way of patience. I don't take this personally. Why would I be that selfish? I'm not a selfish person anymore. Do you see how selfish we are when our partner, our spouse is triggered and wounding and we make it about us? I'm going to make this selfishly about me. Oh, you don't want to be close to me. Oh, you're rejecting me. Are you fucking kidding me? This is one of the biggest goddamn mistakes people make in their relationships, and they wonder why their relationships are fucked because they can't stop being a victim. They can't stop being in powerlessness. They can't stop making it, taking it personally, making it personally about me right now. I'm so fucking selfish if I do that. Stop being selfish in your fucking relationships. And these are programs that are often hidden. They're hidden. You don't even realize how selfish you're being. You're like, I'm not selfish at all in my relationship. Yeah. When you make your partner's pain about you, you can't get more selfish than that. You see it? So if I take this personally, I'm so offended that you're running programs. You don't want to be intimate with me. I'm so offended. I feel rejected and I'm fucking selfish. I am an immature, narcissistic, selfish fucking child in that moment. I am absolutely fucking selfish in that moment. Do you see it? Stop making your partner's wounds and pain and programs about you. Turn it around and make it about me. Fucking selfish. That is not the way of selfless service, which of course is one of the universal ways of oneness. That is not unconditional love. You cannot ever reach and become the vibrational frequency of unconditional love, which is number 14 out of 20 of the 20 ways of oneness, if you're first not the way of selfless service, and that's number 12. You can never become anywhere remotely close to being selfless to your partner in the way of selfless service. What that enlightened frequency is, means, sounds like, feels like, behaviorally looks like, and shows up as, if you cannot become the way of honoring of your partner's pain. That's number 11. If you cannot be harmlessness and gentleness, which you are never fucking harmlessness and gentleness when you selfishly make your partner's programs and wounds and pain about yourself. And I'm sticking with this one example because I want you to see it in a real life example instead of giving you a lot of generalities and then you don't know how to apply it to your own life or relationship. Okay. That's why I'm sticking with one example for this episode. So if I'm becoming the ways of oneness, I'm becoming a being of oneness consciousness. I see that my partner's in pain. I see that that could bring up um, wounds in me if I still carry wounds of fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, and things like that. It doesn't mean pretend like your wounds don't exist and didn't get activated too. Remember, I've already covered that. If that's the case, the way of responsibility, the way of compassion, the way of connection, the way of harmlessness and gentleness, you give to yourself. Surrender to that. That's the way of surrender. Be patient with yourself that you still have those wounds, that her wounds are triggering your wounds. So you heal yourself. Now, here's an example of the beauty and the magic and the magnificence of oneness consciousness. You could say nothing to your partner. You could do nothing to your partner, but realize, ooh, her programs, her wounds triggered my sadness, my fear of rejection or abandonment, whatever, my powerlessness, my whatevers, right? And when I become the ways, that means I'm the way of responsibility first, remember? And then I become every vibrational frequency that allows me to connect to the divinity that I am instead of the wounded, hurt, unhealed human aspect of me. I connect to my divinity very powerfully. My divinity, my higher self, me, the divine me, the I am that I am presence comes online and alchemizes and loves and embraces me, my pain, my wounds, my everything. Do you understand vibrationally as the way of responsibility, I then become every other way of oneness in that moment, and I can spend 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes becoming that. And what I am doing is I'm filling the room, I'm filling my house, I'm filling my relationship energetically with enlightened vibrational frequencies. I do that for myself because as I become the universal ways of oneness, I become a being that is so loving, so powerful, so compassionate, so in the way of presence, so patient, so surrendered to your pain. Those divine frequencies then support you in an enlightened way while you move through your pain and heal your pain. You are now supported in the highest divine way you could be supported energetically with your wounds and your pain, simply by me becoming the oneness consciousness being that I am, that I have the power and the ability to become. You can't get more magnificent than that. Other than when you do that enough, there are no more wounds. Nothing gets triggered or activated anymore. You become that enlightened being. It doesn't mean you never feel pain ever again, but you become the being that is so enlightened that simply by anybody being in your presence, in your vicinity physically, by being in the presence that is you, they immediately start to up level, rise up, become a higher vibrational frequency because of entrainment. They start to heal automatically because your focus is on raising your own vibrational frequency in those moments instead of drowning in or taking personally what your partner's going through because that triggered and activated stuff in you. Don't be that selfish anymore. Become a divine being. Divine beings don't respond or react in that way. Not forgetting that until you're fully healed in those ways, a divine being realizes, oh my gosh, look, I'm not fully healed yet in those ways that Rachel talks about. Oh, that's okay. She also tells me and teaches me that that's okay. I just have to be self aware enough to see what's going on within me so that I don't add negative vibrational frequencies to my partner. My partner's already in negative vibrational frequencies. Why would I add to that? Why would I do that? Ah, but that's what our conditioning has always taught us to do. You see it? I don't run from it. I don't ignore it. I acknowledge it lovingly and I become the ways of oneness. There you go. It's so simple. Simplest thing in the world to become healed, whole, and divine. Simplest thing in the world to become a beingness of oneness consciousness. Notice I did not tell you that simple means pain free. It's that saying simple but not easy. You'll move through your own pain until you no longer have the pain. You embrace your pain by becoming the ways of oneness, compassion, presence, connection, harmlessness, and gentleness, equality, trust, honoring of my own pain. When I become these vibrational frequencies, the very frequencies I'm becoming are the frequencies that heal and transmute and transcend all of the negative lower vibrational frequencies that you still have trapped inside of you that we call our programs and our wounds. You want to know the most powerful, efficient way to co create and manifest in your life whatever it is, whatever your desires are, whatever it is that you would like to experience and have fun with on this earth while you're here, all those quote unquote manifestation techniques, you don't have to learn manifestation techniques. And I'm going to tell you the way that this earth is elevating, the way that this earth is splitting, and on a new earth. Most of those techniques won't fucking work anymore. And the reason why they don't work, it doesn't, they're, don't misinterpret and think that I'm putting them down or judging them or being negative about them. I'm teaching you. That is what I'm offering to you, the way of wisdom. Most manifestation techniques will not work anymore on a new earth. It's time to learn a different way. Why? Those techniques were appropriate when we lived in the age of Pisces, which was still, we were still mastering an age of separation consciousness. Ages. It wasn't just one age. We've had many fucking ages of separation consciousness and this patriarchal bullshit that just destroys and ruins everybody and everything on the fucking planet, including the planet itself. We should know better by now. And we have evolved out of that age, which means we are required to evolve as a species, as human beings, as humanity, as a collective, right? And those who aren't, and those who don't, and those who won't are going to stay in the dimension of an old earth where they can be as violent and harmful and, cruel and murderous and raping and dominating and patriarchal and sexist and whatever the fucks they want to be. You will not experience that anymore because we are creating the vibrational frequency, the dimensions of a new earth. The new earth does not have that on it, which means if you still vibrate at any of those frequencies, whether you realize it or not, you can't claim to be ignorant. Oh, ignorance is bliss. No, it isn't. Ignorance is the old fucking earth. Hello, wake up. I hope that hit you. I hope that hit you hard in a beautiful, divine way, of course, but I hope that fucking hit you hard. That old saying, ignorance is bliss. Oh, but I didn't know. That doesn't cut it. So if you still run a lot of programs, I gave you a beautiful example of one today that a lot of people do in their relationships and they have no idea they're doing it. That fucking selfishness program that you're triggered and frustrated and you're like, I'm going to make this about me. Selfish, 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 which is also a program for some of ignorance because you haven't realized that that's what you were doing to your partner. Selfishly making it about me instead of honoring your partner's pain, your partner's triggers and programs, etc., wounds, being the way of patience with them, being the way of surrender, the way of presence with them, the way of connection and compassion, harmlessness and gentleness, instead of making it about me, which is fucking selfish and arrogant and narcissistic. You see it? That's a program that for some of you, you were in ignorance to maybe until you heard this. Maybe you didn't realize that that's actually what you're doing. Oh my God, I'm so selfish. I didn't mean to be selfish. Yeah, I know. I know. A lot of times we don't mean to be how awful we are. And yet we're still showing up as awful. That is the beauty of this work because that's what awakening for real looks like. Holy shit. I am actually being incredibly selfish in that moment. Whoa, that was in my blind spot. Beautiful. Now you're waking up for real. And now you can connect to your magnificent divine power and you can elevate out of that, raise the vibrational frequency within yourself. Embrace, love yourself for that selfish fucking program you ran this entire time in your whole fucking life and your whole relationship. And you never realize how fucking selfish you were being. You have to bring the vibrational frequency of unconditional love to that, of surrender to it. You see, you bring that for yourself. You do that for yourself. And then as you become that being of oneness consciousness and you do that for yourself, organically, naturally, what you are always offering everything and everyone on this planet 100% of the time is you, all of you, every aspect of you. So think about that. If you're insecure, whether you realize it or not, energetically, vibrationally, you are always offering some degree of insecurity. Always. Because you have programs of insecurity. You have energy of being insecure. Ugh. Vomit. That's closely connected to then and usually creates programs of neediness. Ooh, now you understand why you feel so gross to people, why they don't stay in relationships with you forever, or why in relationships the sex dies, for example. Because when you're needy, running programs of superiority, obligation, or if you're needy and insecure, there's nothing attractive about that. And then we resort to other things. Well, the sex dies because, nope, it's because of your fucking programming. That's why the sex dies. There's your answer. That's it. That's your answer to every fucking thing because of your programs, your unhealed stuff, even the stuff you don't know is there. A new earth does not function in vibrational frequencies of separation. Neediness, codependency, you would think is not separate. It's fucking separation. It separates you from your own power, from your own divinity, from your own capabilities. So that is a separation program. Do you see it? Separation programs separate you from your higher soul, from your divine power, from your divinity. So, of course, codependency programs are separation programs. They separate you from the power that you have, from the capabilities, from the abilities, the power that you are, the independence that you have to take care of yourself, the power that you have to process your own emotions and traumas and wounds and pain. Codependency keeps you weak and pathetic and powerless and needy. Of course, those are separation programs. See it? A new earth does not have those vibrational frequencies like that. They don't, it's not run on that type of energetic framework, on that type of matrix. Fucked up, dysfunctional, weak matrix that enslaved everyone for thousands and thousands of years that people are breaking out of now. But do not think that it is a passive process because you've awakened a little bit or to whatever degree that you're automatic. I'm already on a new earth. No, you're not. I'm sorry, but those people that are fucking delusional that like to tell you what you want to hear are the ones that are also holding you back from actually going to a new earth. You need to understand that. If you keep listening to people simply because they tell you what you like to hear, you're not going very far. You're not rising very high. Hate to tell you. You're still in elementary school or worse in, spiritual teachings when it comes to spirituality. That is not an insult. That is to help you wake up for real and get there for real. Hello. Do you not see that? So, when it comes to the programs that we run, you are not obligated. Now, I have mentioned early on in this episode, obligated to show up for work and do your job because you're paid to do it. It isn't an obligation. Get out of that. It is the way of responsibility. It is the way of loyalty. It is the way of integrity. Period. End. It is the way of honoring. It is the way of selfless service. It is every goddamn way of oneness. When I threw that example in there at the beginning of the episode, which I'm mentioning now because I want to make sure, because I did mention it, that you understand it. You're not obligated. Get out of that. Obligated means I'm being forced to do it to some degree. Someone expects me. It is your responsibility to show up and perform. You're being paid. It is your job, for Christ's sake. Become the way of selfless service. Become the way of loyalty. I know a lot of people who are working jobs that they don't love. They don't really want to be working. They don't want to be working anymore at all. Or, I have to go get a job right now because I'm not making enough to support myself and my reality with my soul's mission and my soul's work yet, because that's a transition. I have to go get this job. And yet I don't want you to go into those scenarios feeling obligated. That is the wrong energy to go into. It is a negative energy to function from, and you will trap yourselves energetically and not being able to elevate out of the things you don't want to be doing anymore. Hear me when I tell that to you so that you can transform out of that. When you go to your job, become the ways of oneness. Be 100%. I am becoming the way of presence with this job. I'm at work right now. I am doing this work. I am earning money to help pay my bills. Isn't that just magnificent that you get to earn money to pay for your life right now? And you're supported in that way while you're transitioning out of having to do that. In order to transition out of having to do that and getting income that fully supports your life, from your soul's mission, your soul's purpose, what makes your soul sing and vibrate in joy and happiness. And you know your soul is fulfilled by doing this particular job over here. In order to fully make that and co-create that as your reality, the job that you have to get or that you're still in, for example, you have to become the ways of oneness in that old job, old reality first. Do you understand that? The way of responsibility, when I show up in the way of honoring for this job. I show up in the way of loyalty for this work, this practice, whatever it is that I'm doing. My boss, my company, my whatever, for my clients, my customers, my whatever it is. I am showing up in selfless service 100%. Why? Because those are enlightened vibrational frequencies and enlightened characteristics that I am challenging myself and inviting myself to become. You're not enlightened because you get everything you fucking want. That's not how you become enlightened. That's not a powerful person to be enabled and everything's fucking easy. Become those vibrational frequencies while doing something that you prefer not to do. That is the path to enlightenment. And as you become the way of responsibility, the way of surrender, zero resistance to this job that I prefer not to have, I am the way of surrender. I am the way of presence. I am the way of connection. That means connection to my divinity every second of every minute of every hour that I am working this job. Oh, that allows me to divinely receive. If I am the way of presence, I am in openness, receptivity to receiving the finances, the income that I am grateful for because I am the way of humility. Gratitude is an aspect, is a vibrational frequency that helps to create the way of humility. As I become the ways of oneness in this thing that I would rather not be experiencing or I don't prefer anymore, but I can become the ways of oneness. I can become an enlightened being or closer to it. And I can do that right here, right now, even with a job I don't prefer to have, I don't want to do anymore. The more I raise my vibrational frequencies while I'm here at this job doing these things I'd rather not do, I'm alchemizing all the stupid fucking scarcity programs that are blocking me from being able to receive the financial abundance, all that financial support from my soul's purpose, this job over here. Scarcity programs are created because I don't want this. I'm acting like a baby and I show up as a little child. I don't have what I want. I don't have the job I want. My soul's not happy. That's scarcity, scarcity, scarcity. But if I become the vibrational frequencies of the universal ways of oneness with this job that I don't prefer, if I become the vibrational frequencies of the universal ways of oneness in my relationship with my spouse when they're triggered in their programming and their wounds, I am becoming abundant like the universe is abundant. I am becoming the fullness of life itself. I'm becoming the fullness of the universe itself. These vibrational frequencies, the ways of oneness, are the ways, the fullness, the life, the vibrational frequencies of the ways of the universe itself. Do you understand? These are the vibrational frequencies of source itself. There's no such thing as scarcity or lack in source in the universe. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. That is a made up reality that we all contribute to. We just don't see exactly how all of the time. And when I'm complaining and frustrated about this, I embrace those emotions. I become the ways of oneness. And I'm living energetically as the fullness of the divinity that I am when I choose to do that in response to what I am feeling or what I am experiencing. Do you understand? And when I can do that, I am becoming the fullness, the abundance of the universe itself, which means my life experiences, my reality has to transform and be different than it was yesterday. it has no choice because I am the fullness and the vibrancy and the life of the universe itself. I am source energy. I am life force energy. I am the fullness of that. And as I expand into that by becoming the ways of oneness during the times of things that I don't prefer and don't like, don't have preference to, but that's where I become abundantly resonating as the vibrational frequencies of the ways of oneness. There is no such thing as scarcity or lack when you live like that. Your outside circumstances, your relationships, your job, your living situation, everything has to transform and change when that is how you are living vibrationally, energetically. That is why it is critical for your joy, your happiness, your level of enlightenment, your level of healing and elevating in this lifetime become the ways of oneness. There's your solution. There's your answer. Learn how to become them energetically. Your entire life has to transform. Thank you for listening. Give us a like. Make sure you subscribe. Go to mastersofselfuniversity.com and check out our programs, our coaching that we can offer to you to help you get to where you want to go. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now, everybody.